What's up? It's me again, Normal Man. I'm hot off my euphoric stupor from the Game Awards last night. We got a new Larian game, Divinity. Freaking Star Wars Racer is coming back after like 25 years, dude. We are living big right now. Now, 'tis the season for spreading Christmas cheer. In light of that, I'm going to be talking about the lens that sparked my love for photography, specifically wildlife photography, and how utterly terrible it is. That's right, you thought we were all about camera positivity around here, but today we're getting toxic. As I absolutely torch this terrible, horrible, no good, very bad lens. This thing, the Canon EF 75-300 Mark III. But up front, I just want to say that I very much don't recommend you buy this lens, even if you're a beginner. And I would actively discourage buying it, even though I just said that. Where was I going with that? Oh yeah, there's gonna be some alternatives to this lens at the end of the video, so if you are actually thinking about getting it, stick around and I will actually have legitimate recommendations that you can use instead of this thing. So this lens has a variable aperture of just f4 to 5.6, and you might hear that and think, hey, that's actually pretty fast, but like that piece of food that's been in the back of your fridge for way too long, this thing is riddled with problems that, in my opinion, far outweigh any positives this lens can claim to have. Now, to remain fair and balanced and all that other woke nonsense, there are some redeeming qualities for this lens. Like I said, this lens is where I got my start in photography. You can absolutely get good results with this lens, and I think that reinforces one of my strongest held photography opinions, which is that your gear doesn't actually matter. Sorry. Your subject can be just about anything, and as long as it's composed well, you can get some amazing photos. Doesn't matter what lens you're using or what camera body you have. Your phone can take amazing pictures as well. This is just me rambling, saying that gear doesn't matter, and it's the techniques behind the picture that actually make a difference. And my point in saying that is that essentially two different things can be true at the same time. This lens can suck complete, but it can also get good results. So I don't want to scare anybody off, but I will be trying to bring back nuanced internet discussion back from the grave. Like, kind of. I'm still gonna be pretty harsh on this thing, I think, but for now though, let's talk some mad shit. So the whole idea for this video kind of got started when I saw this video on YouTube. I don't even remember why I was looking up this particular lens, but basically the title of the video really triggered me. It was called The Best Budget Canon DSLR Telephoto Zoom Lens You Can Buy. You know, it's a lot of qualifiers in the title, and it doesn't really impart the sense that there are any drawbacks to this lens at all. You'd think it's the best budget Canon telephoto DSLR lens you can buy. Which is not true, by the way. Not true. And as I was looking at the comments of this video, it really opened my eyes to like how little some people know about camera gear when they're just getting into the hobby. I mean, I'm not claiming to be an expert by any means, I'm just like a guy who likes to take photos, but one of the comments was asking if it was compatible with like the Canon R5, and like to me that seems very obviously no. I mean, it's an EF mount lens, but not everybody's gonna understand that. But also, I was like, if you have a Canon R5, like, I would hope that you can do better for yourself, you know, maybe afford a better lens that you can use. I mean, there's a lot of options out there, and I don't want somebody with a good camera to be stuck using a piece of garbage like this. And that's a position I find myself in pretty much every day. I'm always thinking about what piece of camera gear I want to get next, and cost is a huge factor in what lens I decide eventually to get. And that is one pro of this lens. It is dirt cheap. Which is what I would say if it was still 2018, because now this lens retails for $240 new, which is absolutely insane. Do not pay $240 for this lens. This lens is 26 years old, and to see it being sold for brand new for that amount of money, like, makes my blood curdle. And also, from what I've seen online, people are actually still buying this lens. Even like on the Canon website, I saw a couple of comments that were posted within the last couple of years. So clearly, people are still considering this as a serious option. Now, when I got this lens for myself, it was about $80 refurbished, and I think that is a much more reasonable price. In today's day and age, $240 for a lens, that's not nothing. And also, think about it in the way that that's $240 you could put to an actual quality piece of gear, instead of just using it on a lens that will actually actively hold you back. Especially when you consider how many alternatives there are to this lens. Okay, so what's actually bad about this lens? What makes it so terrible? I haven't said yet. Well, for me, it's the completely abysmal magenta fringing that you get in, brightly lit areas. Like light, the thing that photographers need to take pictures with. It doesn't like bright light very much. I'm gonna show you a couple of examples here, but like I'm warning you, once you see it, you're not gonna be able to unsee it. So just brace yourself, okay? Like, look at this, man. Like, are we being for real? Like, I've literally never seen a worse case of color fringing in my entire life. Granted, I've not taken photography seriously for very long, maybe a couple years, but like, this is disgusting. This is disgusting what it's doing. And this isn't just an extreme example. I mean, it is an extreme example, but it shows up in all sorts of pictures that I took while using this lens. So this visual massacre can be mitigated by stopping down to f9, but then what's the point? Why even bother having such a wide minimum aperture if I need to stop all the way down to f9 so that it doesn't look like I'm at my coworker's gender reveal party? Here I am at f8, and even still, it's pretty noticeable. It's not like it is ruining these pictures. I still love these pictures. These are still some of my favorite pictures I've ever taken. But as the photographer, knowing, every corner of every single one of these pictures, I just can't stop looking away from that stupid purple fringing, man. I'm sorry. And to that point, this picture right here, this was actually the wow moment for me when it comes to photography. My spark bird, if you will, or my spark picture. I was in South Carolina on vacation, which is where I took pretty much all the other pictures you're seeing today. I was walking up this pier to try and get a view of like some egrets that I'd seen, and then as I was walking across, this blue heron just freaking, he was already there and he just jumped up, and I was like, holy shit, that guy is like right in front of me. I was able to snap this picture, and like, dude, this was the moment for me that I knew that this is the hobby that I want to do for the rest of my life. And still, in this picture, right down by the freaking guardrail, I can see this purple line, running across everything, and it's just like, it permeates all the pictures that I see, and like I said, doesn't ruin them for me, but I always notice it whenever I look at these pictures. And also going off of that, that is one of the pros of this lens, the reach, okay? The reach is really good. I don't think a lot of these pictures would have the same impact if they weren't as zoomed in. 300 millimeters is like an awesome focal length. I mean, if you watched my Sigma video, the fact that that lens can go all the way up to 300 millimeters makes it so good and so versatile, and it lets you go far and get some sick shots, which is why I understand the appeal, okay? I understand the appeal of the 75 to 300 because it is a cheap telephoto zoom lens that can get you those cool shots. However, unlike the Sigma, this lens can only go out to 75 millimeters, which is pretty limiting, especially when you consider the minimum focus distance for this lens is 5 feet, okay? So if I'm not at least 5 feet away from whatever I'm trying to take a picture of, you just can't. So that's something to consider as well. And while 300 millimeters is a really good focal length for travel, nowadays I pretty much always use my giant Sigma 150 to 600. And I understand this isn't for everybody. This lens weighs about 4 pounds. So, the form factor of the 75 to 300 and the weight, okay, those are, I would say, positive aspects for the reach you're able to get, okay? Especially if you're just walking around in the woods or around the city or something like that. It's pretty low profile. Another pretty big gripe I have about this lens today, although it's not something that I thought about when I was first using it in 2024, the lack of image stabilization really can limit this camera when it comes to video especially. And because it's an EF mount lens, you're probably using a DSLR camera like this Canon Rebel T6i, which is my first camera, but it didn't have in-body image stabilization, or IBIS. Here are just a few examples of me trying to get some footage with this thing, but I mean, you can see for yourself, it's really not the best. I do want to point out that yes, you can stabilize video in programs like DaVinci Resolve or Adobe Premiere, and it looks pretty good. However, this lens does not have image stabilization, which is something I prefer, and it's present in other lenses of its type. Okay, another gripe against this lens, the autofocus is jank as hell. Now, if you can get your focus to lock on in the first place, I think it's generally good at staying on, but also you actually have to get it to lock on first, which is, it's tough. Dude, what are we doing? See, like why? Why can't it just... Yeah, like it literally can't even focus right now. Also, another weird quirk about this lens that I've never seen on anything else, the lens turns whenever it focuses. So if you have some kind of variable ND filter, okay, I don't, this is a hypothetical situation, but if you did, it would fuck up because your lens is like actively moving, it's physically rotating the lens as you focus, okay? So which is just like weird, okay? It's weird. External sound recording is basically required if you're using this lens because all you're gonna be hearing is the of this lens trying to freaking find whatever it is you're pointing directly at it. Now with all that said, okay, all my complaints about this lens, Canon has been able to make some improvements to the RF version over the EF Mark III version that I have here. Except they didn't do that. They did not make any improvements whatsoever. This 26-year-old lens came out in 1999, is the exact same lens, functionally, internally, as the RF version, okay? The same motor, the same cheap glass. The only thing different is that it can mount to an R-series camera, and the outside looks a little different. We have changed nothing in 26 years. Nothing. What are we doing? What are we doing? Throw us a dang bone. That's why they're the exact same price online. Does that make sense? It's the same price. Instead, it pisses me off. Like, genuinely, it pisses me off. Canon is selling you a lemon. All right, so, rant for the most part concluded. What can we get instead, okay? There are alternatives. Here are some. So just to be upfront, I have not tried and tested all of these options myself. I'm giving you some options. 2 of them I do own, and 2 of them I can firmly recommend. I will say which ones they are whenever we get to them, but I'm giving you some options. Take them. Take some options. So the most direct replacement for the Canon EF 75-300 is actually coming from Tamron. It's a 70-300, which also has the same minimum aperture of 4 to 5.6 as the EF Canon lens, and it has image stabilization, which they call vibration compensation, or VC. This lens is for Canon EF and Nikon F mount users, and I was able to find it on MBP for just under 300 bucks. However, I was able to find some even better deals on eBay, so if you like the sound of this one, just start looking, look for a good deal, and you'll probably find one. Just know that you can probably find a better deal on a lot of these lenses if you actually, try and look. Okay, so these next 2 suggestions are specifically for Canon crop sensor shooters, my home team, okay? So we have the Canon EF-S 55 to 250 millimeter, f4 to 5.6, and the pricier Canon EF-S 18 to 200 millimeter, f3.5 to 5.6. Wow, that's a lot. Both of these have image stabilization, but they are also for the older Canon EF mount. So if you want to use these on an R-series camera, you will need an adapter. And like I said, I have not been able to test these myself, but if you are a crop sensor Canon shooter, these are 2 options for you. Now, if you are already in the Canon mirrorless world, they have the RF 100 to 400, which if you're in the Canon mirrorless world, you've probably already heard of this lens. It's relatively light, it has image stabilization, but it is a bit pricier at $750 if you're looking at, second-party sellers. You might be able to find a better deal on things like eBay, so maybe look around. And it has a variable aperture of 5.6 to f8, so 8 is not super great on the long end. And my last 2 suggestions both come from Sigma, and these are lenses that I have used and tested and I find both of them quite fun and good. The first one, which is more of a closer analog, is the Sigma 16-300 f5.6 to 6.7. I won't do it again. Which is about the same price as the RF 100-400, but I would say it's probably more fun than the 100-400, you know, if I can be biased a little bit. You know, it might have a shorter reach than the 400 at just 300 millimeters, but you can go all the way out to 16 millimeters instead of just 100. So you get a whole breadth of, you know, different situations where you can use this lens and still get good results. And it's about the same price too. So it's really not much of a competition in my mind. I would grab the Sigma 16-300 in a heartbeat over the RF 100-400. But I understand, if you just care about reach and nothing else, that is your choice. What I can say though is that the 16-300 is a blast to shoot with. It has image stabilization, quick autofocus. I've got a whole video talking about the Sigma 16-300, so if you want to hear more about that one, go watch that video. There's also the Tamron 18-300, which I have not used personally, but it is pretty much the direct competitor to the Sigma 16-300. So if you are a Tamron guy, you have that as an option as well. Last, but certainly not least, is the Sigma 150-600C, or Contemporary. This lens is a beast, and I have probably used this lens more than anything else that I have, as far as, you know, personal photography, not work-related stuff. Before I got this lens, I was using the EF 75-300 for my wildlife, and this was a major step up, okay? It is just, dude, it's so long. 600 millimeters, like, you don't really think about how far that is until you can actually put it on your camera and look through it, but ooh, this thing is sweet. You know, if you're on a Canon crop sensor camera like I am, that crop factor boosts this out to even further at 840 millimeters total. Holy moly, that's so far. This lens also has a variable aperture of f5 to 6.3, and that's pretty good at 600 millimeters, or 840 full frame equivalent. It actually has two different modes of image stabilization. There is a horizontal stabilization so that it mitigates vertical movement, and then there's a blanket overall image stabilization that just tries to keep the picture, you know, as stable as possible. But if you're going for like panning shots, like say a bird flying over a field, you can use the horizontal image stabilization to reduce some of that vertical shake that you get. One drawback about this is that it is for the older EF mount cameras, so if you are a mirrorless shooter, you're going to need an adapter. I recommend the official Canon one. It is more expensive, I know, but I have one of the Canon EF concept EF to RF adapters, and there's just like a bit of like wiggle. Like, I don't know what it is, but it doesn't quite lock it in 100%, but I don't see that with the Canon adapters that I've used before, so I would recommend going first party on that one. Also, like I said, it weighs like 4 freaking pounds. You can certainly handhold it, but your arms might get tired if you're a scrawny little noodle man like me. At the end of the day, I can really only speak to my own personal circumstances and experiences, but I just want to put this video out there as a warning to other new photographers that if I was in your shoes in 2025, looking for a lens to get that was a bit longer reach, I would not get this again. Don't get me wrong, this lens can get good results, but it has a lot of faults that compromise the overall experience when using this lens. Image stabilization, color correction, and quick autofocus are 3 features we love to see on lenses. They're nice little features to have, but when the lens has none of those things, it makes the experience using it pretty miserable. But I'm just one guy, and I'm not your dad. So spend your money however you like. I personally wouldn't spend it on this. Okay, so we're done. We're done. The video's over. We're done. That was an entirely too long and unnecessary video about a 26-year-old camera lens. If you want to watch a YouTube video about an actually good camera lens, go watch my video about the 16-300 Sigma lens that I talked about earlier. That video did way better than I ever thought it would, which is really cool to see. I doubt this one will do as well, but if you did watch it, thank you very much. This channel probably will not be exclusively about camera-related things, although I do have a couple of other ideas of videos I want to make. So if you like this one, subscribe, and you might might like the next one. In any case, thank you very much for watching, and I probably won't see you next time. Boop.